China commits to donate 500,000 COVID-19 vaccines to the Philippines. A Philippine Air Force helicopter crashed in Bukidnon, killing all 7 military personnel on board. Senators are seeking another hearing on the government's vaccination program. This after the two-day hearing yielded, quote, inconsistent information. The Santo Niño de Tondo will hold fewer masses than usual for its feast day celebration to ensure physical distancing among devotees. And Parisians enjoyed rare snowfall in the French capital as they prepare to comply with yet another round of night curfews. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day this Sunday, January 17. I'm Riza Diaz. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with President Duterte at Malacanang yesterday, hours after signing a bilateral deal with his Philippine counterpart. Here's the report.
In yesterday's courtesy call with President Duterte, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi stressed China's commitment for closer relations with the country to, quote, sustain the positive trajectory of the valued and special bilateral relations. In an interview with One News, a research fellow at the Asia-Pacific Pathways to Progress says that this has always been the kind of relationship China wants to have in the Philippines.
They always want to, maintain a constructive kind of a relationship with various countries. So with this, they think that they could follow through on the previous pledges that they have made and pledges of cooperation to the Philippines. So basically, the rationale is that they want to continue this state of constructive, comprehensive engagement between the two countries.
Prior to his visit in Malacanang, Wang signed a bilateral agreement with Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs, the agreement on economic and technical cooperation grants approximately 3.72 billion pesos in funding to the Philippines. This amount will be allotted for livelihood projects, infrastructure facilities, and feasibility studies. This is the 7th provision from China since Duterte became president in 2016. Bringing the total to more than 24 billion pesos. Wang arrived on Friday for a 2-day visit to reciprocate Locsin's visit to China in October last year. The DFA also announced that the Chinese government has committed to donate 500,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses to the country. No additional details were provided, even as to the brand of the vaccine to be donated. This comes after Malacanang on Monday announced that it has secured 25 million COVID-19 vaccines from Chinese drug maker Sinovac. The first batch of these vaccines are expected to arrive next month. Rabena, meanwhile, says China's commitment to donate shots is its way of showing support behind other countries' COVID-19 vaccine efforts.
As we transition to the vaccination phase of this pandemic, China basically wants to gesticulate and show countries in the region that they are behind them. So this is China's way of doing that, and it's also China's way of showing President Duterte that he is important to them.
The senators may hold another hearing on the government's vaccination plan when session resumes tomorrow. Lawmakers are lamenting, quote, inconsistent information gathered during the last 2 sessions on the issue. Senator Locsin questions, among others, why the vaccine czar and the DOH seem to be in direct talks with Sinovac President Helen Yang. The vaccine agreement was originally between our government and that of China. Notably, vaccine czar Galvez was coy about the real price of the vaccine. Now, aside from the issues raised by Senator Locsin, Senator Amy Marcos also had some qualms. She questioned the changing time frame for the delivery of the vaccine, calling it, quote, confusing and half-baked. The Interior Department announced that only 15,000 contact tracers, or a third of the 50,000 employed last year, will be rehired due to budget constraints. Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya said only 1.9 billion pesos was allocated for the hiring of contact tracers this year. The 15,000 employed contact tracers will be under a 6-month contract while the agency waits for the release of additional funds. The DILG said it would prioritize the rehiring of tracers in the most affected regions, such as Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and the Central Visayas, with around 5,300 contact tracers per region. Malaya stressed the need to sustain contact tracing after the new and more contagious COVID-19 variant had been detected in the country. Now, a health expert says the recent spike in COVID-19 cases is still from the holiday season. Professor Guido David from the UP Octa Research Group explained that it was driven by the non-observance of health protocols. David added that the country's COVID-19 testing turnout was reduced due to closure of laboratories and the lack of initiative from the people.
What happened during the holiday was 40% of testing was decreased, or in other words, we were only testing about 60% of what we normally test. This happened from December 25 until about January 3. So as a result of the reduced testing, we were only getting about half of the number of cases that we were supposed to get. And once the testing resumed to 100%, the number of cases increased again.
But David warned that the impact of the holding of the Feast of the Black Nazarene and the detection of a new COVID-19 variant will be seen in 1 to 2 weeks.
I would be cautious still because it normally takes about 1 to 2 weeks before we see an effect. So after the event, it takes usually about 1 to 2 weeks before we see an effect in the number of cases. And we might still see an increase in the number of cases by next week, but we're not sure. So if we don't see an increase, then probably the social distancing that was put into effect was actually effective.
Now, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. While the effects of traslasyon have yet to be felt in our case count, another religious event is set to take place in various parts of the country today. This as Catholics celebrate the annual feast of Santo Niño. Hannibal Talete is joining us live to give us an update on the festivities happening in Tondo, Manila. Hannibal, what's the latest there in Tondo? All right, we'll circle back to Hannibal Talete in a bit so that we would find out the latest of happening in Tondo for the Santo Niño Festival. Meanwhile, here are other stories were making headlines around the nation. 7 people died in a helicopter crash in Bukidnon. A UH-1H Air Force chopper landed at Barangay Bulonay, Impasugong, Bukidnon at around 2:22 p.m. yesterday. Now, 6 of the victims are members of the Air Force and 1 has yet to be identified. The 13th person of interest in the Christine de Sera case has surfaced. A man known as Ethan Maguire is the latest guest in the infamous Room 2207 who has appeared before the NBI. According to NBI spokesperson Lavin, Maguire's counsel reached out to the NBI and asked to be picked up. Room 2207 was the room de Sera and her friends last visited before she was found dead in room 2209 of the City Garden Grand Hotel in Makati. The House of Representatives say it plans to vote for the proposed constitutional amendments separately from the Senate. The House majority has decided to support the separate voting procedure as stipulated in by Speaker Lord Alan Velasco. In a manifesto released on Thursday, political party leaders expressed support for the proposed amendments to liberalize the chapter's economic provisions. House leaders also vowed to, quote, deliberate only on economic provisions as specified in RBH2. They added that the proposed amendments will be submitted to the people for ratification simultaneously with the May 2022 national elections. Now let's try to check back in with Hannibal Talete, who is joining us live from Tondo, giving us an update on the festivities regarding the Santo Niño Festival. Hannibal, what's the latest? Meanwhile, in other stories, here are what we're watching around the globe. Washington is implementing unprecedented security measures ahead of the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. This amid warnings of possible attacks by the same groups involved in the pro-Trump siege of Capitol on January 6. Security enhancements include road closures and the deployment of 20,000 National Guards. The high fence surrounding the Capitol was even pushed outwards to cover the U.S. Supreme Court and the Library of Congress. Biden is set to be inaugurated on January 20. India has launched one of the world's largest vaccination campaigns in a bid to arrest the COVID-19 pandemic in highly populated nation. Using 2 locally produced shots, around 100 people will be vaccinated in each of the country's 3,000 plus centers just on the first day of vaccination. India's 30 million nurses, doctors, and other frontline workers will take priority for the vaccination. They will be followed by over 270 million high-risk individuals over the age of 50. Beneficiaries will not be able to choose between the AstraZeneca vaccine and the homegrown shot from Bharat Biotech, though both are produced locally. Recall that India is still reporting the second higher number of COVID-19 infections in the world, right behind the United States. And snow-coated French capital on Saturday, delighting many Parisians. In Montmartre, locals gathered to enjoy the view and play in the snow, a rare sight for Paris to attract many. Now, the snowfall provided a moment of relief for some as the country prepares to observe a nightly curfew starting 6 p.m. shortly. And those are our top stories for the hour. Join us again later for more, of course, of our continuing monitoring of the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.